Hello, I'm Carly Krakow, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Dr. Beshara Doumani. In July, Dr. Doumani became the inaugural holder of the Mahmoud Darwish Chair in Palestinian Studies at Brown University, the first endowed chair in the United States dedicated to this field. Thank you so much for being here today, Dr. Doumani.
Oh, thank you, Carly, for the interview.
In your recent interview with Jadalia co-editor Dr. Shireen Saikali, you spoke about the establishment of this chair as the culmination of a long effort, but also the start of a new phase for Palestinian studies. We're linking to that full interview for everyone to listen in, but with the time we have today, I wondered if you could begin by telling us how you envision this important development will impact the continued expansion of Palestinian studies as a robust and growing field.
Culmination of an effort in the sense that the conditions of possibility for the establishment of this chair were set by activists like you and others. The wonderful work they've done over many years has created an environment which allowed such a development and institutionalization of Palestinian studies. On a smaller scale, is somewhat similar to how civil rights movement or women's movement or environmental movements have led to positions within universities. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this is really a result of a collective effort. Having said that, institutionalization of a field of study does have some benefits. One of them being bestowing a certain kind of credibility on a field. Of course, we don't need anybody's credibility to do what we do, or recognition of credibility to do what we do, but nevertheless, it means something for an Ivy League university to establish such a chair. I hope it will set an example for other universities, and that this will really precipitate a larger institutionalization of Palestinian studies. Palestinians, as you well know, have been erased discursively and materially in so many different ways. And in terms of knowledge production, this will help center Palestinian voices in the writing of their own history and producing knowledge about them.
Thank you so much for those critical points to give us the essential background. You've spoken about Darwish, for whom this chair is named, as a figure who transcended categories and whose legacy exceeds the colonial frame and the confining identities of either solely victim or resistor. How does naming this chair after Darwish complement your vision of Palestinian studies, as you've described, as a field that focuses on, to use your words, people rather than simply geography?
Yeah, we thought long and hard about the name for this chair. It's very important for people to know that there are multiple donors behind this chair, and therefore we were free really to give it an identity that transcends the particular donor to a university. And Darwish, as you know, probably articulated the Palestinian condition and how it's changed over time, as there are many Darwishes really. In his long career, better than almost anyone. And we could always find a quote from him that expresses precisely what we need to say. I have focused a lot on pushing this field towards Palestinian as opposed to Palestine studies, though of course they're very much related and overlap. And I just the other day found a quote from Darwish I'd like to share with you in a 1995
Wonderful.
that he did. He says, Palestinian poetry has, for less than a decade, and he's writing in 1995, become conscious of the necessity of humanizing its themes and passing from Palestine as a topic or an object to Palestinian as a subject. So that, in a way, expresses what I mean to say, focusing on the social, focusing on the human, regardless of geography, brings in all three major segments of the Palestinian population, especially the over 6 million that are in exile in the diaspora and have been largely forgotten in recent studies. But it also focuses on the social conditions of everyday life of people and how these are very much political in a broad sense of the word. Politics is hardwired into the Palestinian condition, and I think it's important to push in that direction.
Thank you so much for those key points and for bringing in that perfect quote, really, from Darwish as well. I also want to pick up on something I think you mentioned a bit earlier, and also just now about connections between struggles. Of course, the news about this chair arrives amid great continued struggle for Palestinians and during a time of international solidarity with struggles against racism in the US and worldwide. What do you think the long-term impacts will be for Middle East studies and for intersectional approaches across disciplines to the type of work that you've been doing your entire career, focusing on people and histories marginalized by mainstream scholarship?
I think the establishment of this chair kind of clarifies or brings into greater focus things that have already been going on for a long time. The Palestinian condition has in many ways become symbolic of a global condition. The Palestinian struggle for freedom in many ways has become a symbol for many other struggles for freedom. Palestinians are in many ways a canary in the mine for some of the biggest global challenges that we're facing. And people who are concerned about other issues, whether it's the pipeline across indigenous lands in this country or struggles of marginalized people in India, or Kashmir, the Palestinian condition, there's a lot there for them to identify with. At the same time, I'm very conscious of our positionality here. As a Palestinian in the United States, I'm in many ways a part of a settler project, living on indigenous lands, and is also very much affected by, and in many ways, shaped by the legacy of slavery in this country. And it's these issues of race, racialization, and indigenous struggles that we have to give primacy to in this country. And this is where a lot of the focus that we have for progressive work actually takes place. But it's good to know, and it's good to feel this young generation, which has been an absolute pleasure and is very inspiring to teach and very inspiring for me. They seem to take this intersectionality complex, really, question of intersectionality almost naturally and understand it almost instinctively. And I have high hopes for this generation, change the world in many ways that my generation maybe failed to do.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Doumani, for your time and insight. There's obviously so much more that could be said, but we'll leave it there, unfortunately, for today. And before we do go, I have to ask you to tell us about your beautiful backdrop in the background there. I know we were speaking a bit about it earlier.
So that's a picture I took while taking a hike in California a long time ago. And it shows it as my background for Zoom, which is now the reality of our life, because it bends, but it doesn't break. And I think that's where we are in many ways, under a lot of pressure, but we will bend and survive and not break. And so that's what message of that. Thank you for picking up on it.
Well, thank you. And yeah, perfect note to end on. But thank you again for being here. And we're really looking forward to your future work and very excited about this development. For more on this important topic, please listen to Beshara Doumani's interview titled Reflections on Palestinian Studies, which is up on Jadaliyya now.
Thank you very much.